right, guys, I want to talk about Borderless. This is Lauren Southern's documentary where she is talking about the migrant issue. I don't want to call it a crisis, but the migrant issue taking place in Europe right now. I am distinctly American and I have my own thoughts on it, but let's start at the beginning with the creator herself. Her name is Lauren Southern. She's a journalist first and foremost, and has been a content creator on YouTube for a while now. I came across her work in 2016 when when the commentary community was really taking off on the platform, and I think she was doing interviews with Stefan Molyneux, who I'd also come across at around that time. And the media were saying how racist and terrible these people are. And so, I'm a bit of a connoisseur of racism. So I went and checked them out. And, I actually found myself agreeing with a lot of the points and really not seeing the hatred and vitriol that you would expect from these types of folks. So I've kept up with them over the past few years. And she's released this documentary, and I believe it's insanely well done. I've just gotten finished watching it. But I also, but not I also, but I want to talk about it because it was very, very enlightening as far as, just how massive and on scale this entire situation is. Now, let's get this out of the way really quickly. Lawrence total boner food. All right. And that's not to be sexist or anything else like that, but if you are familiar with my content at all, I have like a 35% a leeway that I give when I find the whoever speaking physically attractive. Like, just discount 35% of my positive vibes, okay? So with that being said, I'm gonna be skipping around her video because I don't want to get copyright claimed at all. I really can't suggest that you watch this, check this out enough. YouTube actually tried to censor this video. And so it's part of the reason why I really wanted to discuss it and, just give my thoughts from an American perspective. Now, her main thing is European, I guess displacement or replacement, where they're sending people from Turkey, Istanbul, so many different regions and from so many different cultures into Europe, and how they have to migrate. And she does an amazing job going into camps, settlements, talking to the migrants and seeing the conditions in which they use to flee from, their homelands. And she really there's a really important and an amazing part where she goes in on how the poorest of the people of these lands aren't particularly getting to go to these other nations. It's the people who have the money and can afford to get to Europe or deal with the NGO or something along those lines. And by the way, an NGO is a non-government organization, and what they do is, to an extent, it's nefarious. I'm no fan of the government by any stretch of the imagination, but I respect why it exists. And the reason these NGOs exist is to circumvent the government laws and to, slip people into places in a lot of cases. Not all NGOs, of course, but when it comes to the migration, that's a big part of it. And so, listening to these people and, if we want to chop down where she ultimately lands on this, and it's what I like to call the Jorah Mormont for my Game of Thrones fans. There are good and bad on both sides of every conflict ever. And to an extent, I believe that there's a level of globalism that takes place. Now, here in the United States, we have it down like to a T. Like, our land is so massive and there's so many different, spaces. One of my favorite examples to use is Chinatown. Somebody can go into Chinatown and not have to speak a lick of English for the rest of their life, but they have representatives, they have elected representatives that go out and speak the language and all that other stuff, but it's a little slice of home for people from that culture and from that area. And that's one of the, I think, really one of the United States greatest attributes, is that we have so many different places that are just designed to, acclimate people, or, some people don't even have to acclimate. I mean, I used to live in San Diego. And let me tell you something. If you don't speak English in San Diego, if you just purely speak Spanish, you'll be okay. I can guarantee you that, because of its proximity to Mexico. And it's just like, honestly, I used to have this joke where, this must have been Mexico like in 1975 because of the heavy Spanish presence. And you want to hear something really funny? The Spanish presence in Chicago was far more pronounced. I went to Chicago, and the Spanish presence in Chicago is just, I mean, like, if you're not from there, if you've never been there, you wouldn't expect it, because when you hear Chicago, you think of basically black people and Bernie Mac and those types. So it's it really was a shell shock when I went there. But to get back to my United States point, like here in New Jersey, Jersey has declared itself a sanctuary state, and the way our state's set up, honestly, we're the smallest state in the union by far. We already had the most people, but where the beauty lies in is that if you do migrate here, our government knows where they're gonna put you, knows exactly where they intend on sending you. So that really is a amazing thing. I believe, I can't, when I say amazing, I don't mean that with a positive or a negative connotation, but it's impressive on a grand scale of things, in a nefarious way, I guess, because they can herd people in here in large numbers, push them off to say the side, and say, hey, best of luck for you. But 9 times out of 10, where the people land up, and particularly the poorest amongst them, ends up being the hood, ends up being urban communities. I'm from a town called Irvington, where we to this moment have such a setup going on, where you have immigrants come in, and it's like the starter city, and if you do well, you can proceed to greater heights, and if you don't, well, shoot, these places were prison farms from the beginning. They've been prison farms. These black communities have been designed to kind of just placate to the system and get people in and out of prison, or just push us on out. So that's the how and why that we do that here in the States. But what they're going through over in Europe is actually quite a bit different, because they have like we had at our southern border, we have caravans that are coming through, and we're talking about thousands deep. But at the when it comes to Europe, they have people coming through, so many different means, so many different ways. And one of the things she explores in this documentary is some of that places, like right now, I believe, because I'm just now paying back attention to the screen, I believe she's out in the just in the woods in the dark, waiting for passage for or waiting to meet up with more migrants who make these trips, and this is all taking place over there. But really, when it comes to the migration situation that we have here, that's basically a global thing at this point, I would always recommend that the migrants themselves try to stay home and try to fix home, first and foremost. But I completely understand that that's not always the case, and they're not, in a position. But, man, this is a very deep and a very complicated situation that gets no better when, you have people from both sides looking to push narratives. Like, one of the worst parts of this is that, and they go into this in the documentary as well, that you have, just good people, that want to just create a better life for themselves, but are forced out of their homelands, mixed in with gang members, and man, let's not even begin the conversation on the amount of exploitation that takes place during these trips. And whether it's Europe, whether it's the United States, no matter what, when you have when the vulnerable are vulnerable, bad people will take advantage. And the amount of forcible entries on ladies that take place during these trips are just catastrophic. And even in the United States, at the southern border, they started doing DNA tests, and like a third of the children that are being claimed by adults as their kids are coming back. Nah, that's not your shit. That's not your seed, man. And so there is so much exploitation that's taking place that it really does feel as if it would be like something in some way, shape, or form, in some governmental form, needs to happen, and particularly when it comes to those areas. And like them or not, Trump has the best idea. Hey, let's fix these places so the people don't have to leave. And so, like people, like, I don't want to sit here and call myself a nationalist, but in a way, yeah, I'm from the United States. I was born in Jersey. This is my homeland. I am a Native American by all stretches of the imagination. And one of the things that I find most compelling about the United States is that we do have the ability. If you don't like your surroundings in the United States, you can move. Moving freely about the United States is really one of the greatest blessings that we ever have. So, if you have the capacity in an urban environment to, make enough money or make enough of yourself to get out of that urban environment, then it's there for you. And, part of me always feels like, hey, maybe you should stay in your urban environment and try to fix that. And I've actually done that over the past 3 years. And yeah, it's such a daunting task because of the blind eye that urban elected officials tend to give their communities. So those above them can create the space for the migrants to come in. It really is an amazing circle how this all flips back and forth and circles back around to ultimately the same thing. I remember this lady. She's in Ireland, and she was talking about how Ireland's changed, how have migrants in the streets and vagrants all over the place, since you have all this just almost unfiltered migration taking place. I mean, if you don't remember the EU, not Brexit, Jesus Christ. I was arguing with somebody about Brexit. It's not a real thing. Don't ever let anybody convince you that, because none of those people are where Democrats actually are. As far as the black exit from the Democratic Party, yeah, good luck with that, champ. But I'm talking about Brexit. Britain's desire to leave the European Union. This plays a part in it. This plays a rather significant part in it, because and you know what? There's a fantastic parallel that I have in my own life, because back in the 80s, my hometown, the one that I just spoke of, where I said I've been for the past 3 years, my hometown was actually a rather nice and affluent place. You couldn't even wear jeans and sneakers after 6 p.m. without being escorted out of the town. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's authoritarian tyranny," or it's keeping your town free of riffraff. One of the two. But either ways, they broke that down. They broke down so many different elements and aspects to the community that, I feel Ireland's pain in this scenario, because we went from an nice and affluent town to urban America overnight, and urban America looks a lot like the areas in which Ireland and even some of the spaces that Lauren visits during her movement into the camps and the setups that the migrants have, because they ain't got nothing and they gotta move quick and they just trash things. And I'm a witness to this. This happens all over urban America, and the residents of these places are left wondering, well, why can't I keep this place clean? But you can't keep this place clean because your government needs the migration and the people coming on in who aren't particularly used to dealing in, or who aren't used to American customs and American, you know, culture, which means, hey, yeah, you toss everything in a trash bag. You know, you keep things neat, you keep things clean. It's not particularly a priority for such folks. But yeah, I think this was just an amazing documentary that she did. She really got into the meat and potatoes of, like, you know, the little intricacies that migration and its effects are having on the West. And by West, I mean, you know, Western culture. We're separated between East and West. Just in case you don't know, we're separated by East and West. Eastern, Middle Eastern in particular. That's more, you know, definitely more conservative, but far more, you know, I don't want to call them that, like, back in the Stone Ages, but they do have a more antiquated view of things. Whereas here in Western society, we believe ourselves to be enlightened and, you know, everybody can be friends. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. And so ultimately, where I fall in on this, how long have I been running my mouth? Almost 20 minutes. Okay. So where I fall in on this is that, you know, I welcome migrants. I grew up in a town that, you know, was very welcoming towards people of other cultures and people from other countries. And honestly, that installed in me a level of support and love for people from other cultures and people from other countries who are ultimately just good people that want to make better for themselves, you know? But with them comes, and particularly mass migration, with that comes the people, the bad individuals who slip through the cracks, and that needs to be tightened up. So really, I guess I'm a nationalist now. I don't know. I can't be a white nationalist because I'm black, but I guess I'm just a nationalist now that does love his country. I mean, I don't understand people who cry and complain about colonialism while simultaneously using toilets and plumbing. You know what? You may not like the colonizers, but I enjoy being able to take a shower, you know? I mean, let's be real. This wasn't all bad. But, you know, you got people who never spent a day of their life in, you know, true destitute. Just like, oh man, colonizers, and my God, we live in the funniest world. So with that being said, yeah, we're gonna bring this to an end. Do me a solid and like if you like the video, sub if you enjoy my fantastic voice, share, because yeah, Lord, I mean, YouTube tried to completely dismantle this lady's video, and honestly, they don't want the word coming out because they have higher ups that are globalists themselves who want everything just all open, and I don't feel like that's the best strategy towards helping the most people, because I feel as if we take the people of these nations and we improve their nations, we help to improve their nations, that'd be one thing. But here's where the weird thing comes in at, because it's so hard to help uplift another nation when 9 times out of 10 that nation is super corrupt. I mean, it's no different than what happens here in urban America. It's just a ton of corruption, and the beat goes on. So comment, you know, talk to me. Do you disagree with any of my points? Do you think I'm just a rambling idiot? Man, Lauren, you are total boner food. I will give you that much. I like her dimple too. By all means, feel free to just, like, you know, call me a sexist, misogynist, nationalist, Uncle Tom, Sambo in the comments. I appreciate it. I like the discussion. And until the next video,